Okay, here we have sheep brain. We're going to go through again the list just as from top to bottom. This is a whole brain with the meningeal layers on it. So the meninges are the outer layers covering the brain, and this white layer is the dura mater. Underneath that are two other layers, the arachnoid mater and the pia mater. And when you take that off, they're still on there and they're very thin, but you just need to know the order of them. The large lobe in the front that's very folded is your cerebrum, and it is split into two cerebral hemispheres and separated by the cerebral longitudinal cerebral fissure. Okay, and then you have two lobes which control the olfactory region. These are the olfactory bulbs. And then on the cerebrum you have folds and valleys here, I guess. The folds, the raised portion, are the gyri, and then the wrinkles are the sulci. Okay, then when we split the brain in half, there's a lot of structures within the brain that we're going to identify. The first is the corpus callosum, okay, and I think it looks like an upside down Nike sign. And then you have the piriform lobe, which is a lobe on the cerebral hemisphere, this big one on the side. Okay, below the cerebrum, you have the cerebellum, and it also has regions. The big raised portion in the middle is called the vermis, and then the raised portions on the sides are called the folia. And if you split it in half, it also has cerebellar hemispheres. So this is the right cerebellar hemisphere. Okay, again, and I'll switch to this one. The big structure in the middle here is called the thalamus. Below the thalamus is called the hypothalamus. And then the structure connecting the hypothalamus to the hypophysis, or the pituitary gland, is called the infundibulum. And then the optic nerve forms an X. I'll show you on here. You can vaguely see it there. They still have the meninges on it. But the one going to the left eye comes from the right hemisphere, so they cross each other. And chiasm means X, so the optic chiasma is those two nerves as they cross each other. Okay, so then this is one optic nerve, and this is the optic tract going to the eye. This still has an eye attached to it. Alright, this has the pituitary gland removed, but the infundibulum would be right there. Below the infundibulum then are two raised portions called the mammillary bodies. And then we showed you the thalamus before, and the hypothalamus. The epithalamus is then the roof of the thalamus. And it includes this structure, the epithalamus. The pineal gland is part of the epithalamus. And also the telechoroidea, which is these kind of spider web connecting tissue between your cerebral hemisphere and the the corpora quadrigemina. We'll get to that in a second. So then the thalamus, again, is this big ball in the middle, and the ball there is called the intermediate mass. Okay, and then you have the tectum, which is made of your corpora quadrigemina. The easiest way to find it is to pull this cerebellum and the cerebrum apart, and you can see those two raised portions there make up the corpora quadrigemina. The superior one is superior colliculi, and the inferior one is the inferior colliculi. From the side, this is what they look like. So this is superior and inferior colliculi. Okay, and when you get to the brainstem, you have the pons, which is this raised portion here. And the medulla oblongata is this region here. Okay, and then going back to the corpus callosum, you have different structures within it. On the anterior portion, you have the genu. And on the posterior region, you have the splenium. And then underneath those is the fornix. Okay, and then you have a structure that separates. You have one on the right, one on the left, and that's called the septum pellucidum, and you can see part of it's still there, but most of it has been removed. Okay, the cerebral peduncle then is below the mammillary body. Mammillary body, this is the cerebral peduncle. And then you have spaces filled with fluid. I'm going to go through those. This, within the what's the septum pellucidum is separating are the two lateral ventricles here. And then you have the third ventricle here, and the cerebral aqueduct, which connects the third and fourth ventricle. And then once you get to the spinal cord, after the medulla, this is the central canal. This structure here that looks like a tree is called the arbor vitae. It looks like branches. And let's see, what else am I missing? Yeah, that's all of them. So we covered all the structures you have to know. You also have to know the cranial nerves. I'm going to identify as many as I can on this, but this one doesn't have all of them. I'll show you the general locations though. So this is the first optic, or the first nerve, or the olfactory nerve. This is the optic nerve, and this is the oculomotor nerve. And the fourth one is on the side here. This is the trochlear nerve. The fifth nerve is, you have a bunch of them all together here. The fifth one is right here, and then the abducens is up here. You can barely see it, but there it is. Okay, the fifth is the trigeminal nerve. Okay, 6. Then you have 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 are all right there, but they go in order, but you just can't see them on this one. And then 12 is also in the middle. So 3, 6, and 12 are all in the middle. The rest are on the side, except for 1 and 2. That's all.